So, I think everyone who practices a form of creative art, whether it be writing, drawing, painting, music making, or whatever the case may be, is familiar with the concept of feeling drained, feeling like you're running out of ideas, feeling like you're just repeating the same works over and over again. And in order to understand how this may happen, I'm going to start by outlining my own personal creative process. So, what I tend to do is I'll just lie down, shut my eyes, and start imagining lots of different images and things. And it's sort of like going through a photo album, except the visions will be quite low resolution. And it's a bit of a mixture of an image that I can sort of visualize in my mind and a general idea or thematic. And what happens, if I'm lucky, is that suddenly one of these mental images will intrigue me and inspire me in some way. And then I feel a strong force to put pen to paper, so to speak, and reproduce that vision as well as I can. But the key word here is that I really do feel that sort of rush of inspiration if I like the idea. And if I don't, because as I say, that can also happen when none of these images seem interesting to me, then I consider I consider that I have bad ideas. I consider these ideas to be bad, boring, and I consequently won't even paint anything. And it can be quite a frustrating experience and a hard one to get out of. And when this happens, you'll probably start painting less, or otherwise forcing yourself to paint something when you don't even particularly enjoy the idea that you're painting. And if there's no joy in pursuing a creative activity, then there is no point, in my opinion, in doing it at all. So, why does this happen? Why do you have these moments of inspiration? And why will there be these down periods which happen where everything you can just think of just feels grey and dull and uninteresting? So, in my opinion, your imagination is dictated by your knowledge. So what I mean by this is that every scenery, event, or anything you can imagine is just like a collection of different things you have seen directly or indirectly in your life. So the image or the metaphor I like to use is to think of a painting as a completed puzzle. And all the little different pieces within that puzzle are some little pieces of things you have seen or heard about in your life. So even if you're drawing or painting fantasy or truly unrealistic things, they are still based and being built from your mind, which is itself built by everything you've seen and lived up to that point in time. So the point here is that you can't create something out of nothing. And I would argue that even a guy, for example, if Michelangelo had been locked in a room his entire life with access to painting materials, but never left his room, he wouldn't have been able to paint anything because his mind wouldn't have those different pieces at his disposal, and he wouldn't have been able to imagine any of the things that he did. Now, of course, here we're talking about an extremely talented person, but that could be a topic for a different video, talent. But that's not what I want to speak about here. So, when you start lacking ideas, it's because you're not living any new moments. And there's a chance that your life is built upon a routine, and there comes a point where that routine is not bringing you any new experiences. And you need these experiences to help fill your mind with new pieces of the puzzle and consequently new interesting paintings. So how do you overcome this? How can you counter this? How do you get more interesting ideas and become inspired to paint again? So quite recently I went to an art exposition in Paris of a French contemporary painter called Gérard Garouste, who is truly a genius in my opinion. And he had different rooms which were each based on a particular theme. For example, one was about Dante's Inferno, Another one had lots of paintings referring to stories of the Old Testament. One was about Kafka's Metamorphosis, and many, many more. And when I saw this, and all his different painting styles and ideas, it had two sort of effects on me. Firstly, it showed me that he was getting his waves of inspiration through different books and exploring them to the fullest. And instead of then being locked into that theme for good, he would then move on to a different theme based on a different story or a different source. And now his style was and is prevalent in all his works, I'd say, but he manages to paint so many creative and interesting artworks because he's always reading and playing with new literary and religious ideas, which seem to be the main themes which inspire him. And secondly, it really expanded my mind to the endless possibilities that exist in the world of painting. And I think this is a feeling you get when you visit the life's works of such artists. And while I was at the exposition, suddenly I had a painting idea which inspired me again. And seeing and truly examining the art pieces of different people, I think, is really a good way to enhance your own imagination. Reading books, receiving lots of different narratives and ideas is a good way to increase your imagination as well. I also think things like which are very quite simple, such as going for walks, traveling, living different experiences, but really making sure that you're observing things around you when you're going for walks. These are things which will add more pieces of the art puzzle to your brain, which will then help you create more unique compositions. Now, the contradiction lies in the fact that the painter is someone whose activity tends to be extremely introverted. But if all you do is stay in your room and never live and see anything in the world, you're going to run out of ideas very quickly. And if you study the lives of the most famous and interesting artists and writers, they all have had very interesting lives themselves. And their lives have given them the extra pieces of the puzzle necessary to come up with their brilliant ideas.